For many people, growing fruit sounds like a game of patience. Plant a tree today and wait years for the first harvest. But what if you don't have years to wait? With only a small backyard, rooftop, or corner of your home, the right fruit tree could transform that tiny space into something remarkably productive. You could start harvesting fresh fruit within the very first year. For many gardeners, that sounds almost impossible, but some fruit-producing plants grow remarkably fast, and one of the most interesting choices for a small garden is the papaya. Unlike traditional large fruit trees, papaya grows rapidly, needs relatively little space compared with many orchard trees, and under good conditions can begin producing fruit only about 7 to 11 months after planting. That is dramatically faster than many conventional fruit trees. Papaya also makes sense for warm climates because it doesn't require the long winter chilling period that some temperate fruits need. For someone who wants a fast harvest rather than a permanent orchard, this is a major advantage. However, papaya does need enough room around it for healthy growth, and it performs best in full sunlight. So while it is compact compared with a huge mango or jackfruit tree, it isn't necessarily the best choice for a very tiny balcony. Now compare that with the fig tree. Figs are another impressive option for gardeners who want fruit quickly. Dwarf and compact fig varieties can work particularly well in small yards and large containers, and some can begin producing fruit in roughly 1 to 2 years under suitable conditions. The advantage of a fig is that it can be trained and pruned to remain relatively compact while still producing full-sized fruit. It is also known for being relatively low maintenance once established. But there is an important difference. Even though figs can fruit quickly, papaya can potentially beat them in the race to the first harvest. In other words, if your number one priority is speed, papaya has a serious advantage. If your priority is a more traditional, long-lived fruit plant that can be shaped to fit a small garden, the fig becomes much more attractive. Then there's the mulberry. Mulberry trees are famous among gardeners for their rapid growth and early fruit production. Some compact or dwarf mulberry varieties can begin producing fruit within roughly 1 to 2 years, and they respond well to pruning, making them useful in smaller spaces. Mulberries also have another advantage. Many varieties are self-fertile, meaning you don't necessarily need 2 separate trees just to get fruit. Their berries can be eaten fresh, used in desserts, or turned into jams and other foods. But there is a downside. Ripe mulberries can stain clothing, pavement, and outdoor surfaces, and birds can become very interested in the crop. So a mulberry may be one of the fastest traditional fruit trees, but whether it is the best choice depends heavily on where your garden is located. Next comes guava, a particularly interesting choice for gardeners in warm regions. Guava is famous for being tough, adaptable, and relatively forgiving. Some nursery-grown guava plants can begin fruiting within about 1 to 2 years under favorable conditions, making them much faster than growing a guava tree from seed. This distinction is extremely important. If you plant a random seed and wait, you may be waiting much longer, and you may not get fruit that matches the quality of the parent plant. A healthy, grafted, or otherwise established nursery plant can dramatically shorten the waiting period. Guava also has a major advantage in many tropical and subtropical gardens because it can tolerate a range of growing conditions. For a gardener who wants something fast, productive, and practical, guava may actually be a better long-term choice than papaya, even if papaya wins the race to the first fruit. Another excellent contender is dwarf citrus, especially compact lemon or mandarin varieties. Dwarf citrus trees are designed to stay smaller than standard trees and can be grown in large containers, patios, and limited garden spaces. Some varieties can begin producing fruit in roughly 1 to 3 years, depending on the cultivar and growing conditions. Their biggest advantage is versatility. A dwarf citrus tree can provide fragrant flowers, attractive evergreen foliage, and edible fruit while remaining relatively manageable. Unlike papaya, it looks and behaves much more like the traditional fruit tree most people imagine. However, citrus generally requires more patience than papaya, and its growth and fruiting depend heavily on the specific variety, climate, rootstock, sunlight, and care. Pomegranate is another compact-friendly fruit plant worth considering. Dwarf pomegranate varieties can work particularly well in small gardens and containers, and some compact forms can begin fruiting in roughly 1 to 2 years, depending on variety and conditions. Pomegranate also has an advantage that many gardeners appreciate. It can tolerate relatively dry conditions once established, although proper watering is still important for healthy growth and fruit production. Its attractive flowers also make it useful as both an ornamental and edible plant. But again, if the question is simply, which one can give me fruit the fastest, papaya usually cannot compete with a well-grown papaya. And then we have the famous mango. Mango is one of the most beloved fruit in tropical countries, but it is not usually the winner when speed and small space gardening are the priorities. A mango grown from seed can take several years before producing fruit, with some sources noting around 5 to 8 years for seed-grown trees. Grafted dwarf mango varieties can dramatically reduce that waiting time and are much better suited to small gardens and containers. But even a carefully selected dwarf mango is generally a longer-term investment than papaya. Mango gives you the reward of a beautiful, valuable fruit tree, but it asks you to be patient. So if we compare these plants purely by how quickly they can potentially produce fruit, papaya is one of the strongest candidates for warm climate gardeners. A well-cared-for papaya can begin fruiting in roughly 7 to 11 months, while figs, mulberries, guava, dwarf citrus, and pomegranate commonly fall into the approximately 1 to 3 year range, depending on variety and conditions. Mango generally takes longer, especially when grown from seed. But speed isn't everything. A fruit plant should also be judged by its size, climate compatibility, maintenance requirements, reliability, fruit quality, and how much space it occupies. And this brings us to one of the biggest secrets of small space fruit gardening. Don't choose a tree simply because it grows fast, choose the right variety. Dwarf, semi-dwarf, compact, columnar, or specially selected cultivars can make an enormous difference. Modern compact fruit varieties are specifically useful for small yards, patios, and containers because they can remain much smaller while still producing normal-sized fruit. For containers, many compact fruit trees do best in large pots with excellent drainage, plenty of sunlight, and regular feeding. A common recommendation for compact fruit trees is around 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight each day, although the exact requirement depends on the species and climate. So what does the ideal small fruit garden look like? Instead of planting one enormous tree and waiting years, imagine combining different fast-producing plants. A papaya could provide extremely early fruit. A compact guava could provide another reliable harvest. A dwarf fig or mulberry could add variety. And a dwarf citrus could provide lemons or mandarins while also adding evergreen foliage and fragrant flowers. This approach spreads your harvest across different seasons and reduces the risk of depending on only one plant. There is also another important factor that many beginners overlook: how the plant was propagated. A tree grown from seed is not always the same as a grafted or nursery-grown plant. Seed-grown fruit trees can take much longer to produce and may not reproduce the exact characteristics of the parent fruit. Grafted or selected nursery plants are often chosen specifically for desirable fruit quality and earlier production. This is especially important when you're trying to create a small garden where every square meter matters. And finally, remember that no fruit tree has a guaranteed harvest schedule. Temperature, sunlight, soil drainage, water, fertilizer, pests, disease, variety, and planting material can all change the result. Even papaya, despite its impressive speed, needs suitable conditions to reach its potential. In warm climates with strong sunlight and good care, it can be incredibly productive. But poor drainage, inadequate nutrition, extreme weather, or other stresses can slow growth and reduce fruit production. So the real secret isn't simply planting the fastest fruit tree. It is creating the conditions that allow the right plant to grow at its natural maximum speed. So after comparing them all, which one wins? If your goal is the earliest possible fruit harvest in a warm climate, papaya is one of the strongest choices, with fruit potentially appearing within the first year. If you want a traditional small fruit tree with quick production, fig and mulberry are excellent contenders. If you want something hardy and highly practical, guava is a fantastic option. If you want evergreen beauty and citrus fruit, dwarf lemon or mandarin can be ideal. And if you're willing to wait longer for a classic tropical favorite, a grafted dwarf mango can be worth the patience. The best small garden isn't necessarily the one with the fastest growing plant. It is the one where the right plant, the right variety, and the right care come together. Because in the end, growing fruit isn't just about waiting for a harvest. It's about turning a small piece of land into something alive, productive, and rewarding. A single tiny garden can become a miniature orchard, and with the right choices, you don't necessarily have to wait many years to enjoy the results. So if you have a small backyard, rooftop, patio, or garden corner, don't think that limited space means limited possibilities. Choose wisely, give your plants sunlight, healthy soil, proper water, and regular care, and that little garden could soon be producing fruit of its own. If you enjoyed this journey into the world's fastest fruit-growing options, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us for more fascinating gardening discoveries.